I think coming into the company as a woman, and I'm lucky that there were already those before me who set the example and set the precedent that, just because you're female doesn't mean that you have to work a little bit harder. The others paved the way for that, and that I'm lucky that I came into the company when it had this opportunity for me.
Thought-provoking conversations with the people shaping our country. We uncover stories behind the headlines with influential voices from the Philippines and beyond. This is Manila Bulletin's The Sit Down.
Hello, this is James Loyola. I'm a business reporter of Manila Bulletin. And this is another episode of the Manila Bulletin's The Sit Down. Here with us is Monica Lorenzo, the Director for Leisure and Business Development of Torre Lorenzo Development Corporation. She will share with us her insights on the real estate sector and how her company has been growing in the residential and leisure development sectors. So, to start off, maybe can you tell us a little about how Torre Lorenzo has developed over the last 25 years and what legacy it has developed through that time?
Yeah, so Torre Lorenzo was started a bit over 25 years ago. We initially started building next to universities. So creating premium student residences first by De La Salle, and then we've expanded to other universities as well. So that was really how we built our brand, building these condominiums for students that were A-class. These weren't dormitories. These weren't, the typical, when you think student housing, this is not, these were buildings that you wouldn't expect. So from there, from starting in Taft, we've expanded to cover the other major universities around Manila, and then along the way, we also started to do more residential and leisure properties. So those are really the properties outside of Metro Manila. So we have properties in Davao, in Lipa, and we are looking to launch in other provinces as well. In those markets, we see it's not quite student driven. The schools aren't as big as your big 4+ universities in Metro Manila, but there you have a booming population. You have a lot of OFWs who are looking to come back. You have strong demand for condos and more upscale kind of development. So that's what we've looked for in terms of our projects outside of Metro Manila. With that, also, when we build, we know we need, especially in places where we aren't as known, that's where the leisure or the hotel side of the business comes in, because your hotel really serves as the landmark, and it really sets the tone for the entire development, whether you're building, something on several hectares of property, or if it's something like a 2 or 3 tower development. Having a hotel there really helps build your brand, and also at the same time really elevates the value of everything around it.
So as you expand your offerings, it continues to be on the more upscale segment of the market.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think this is, well, my dad, when he started, he'd always say the Filipino deserves better. And I think that's something that we consistently try to do with all of our projects. It's that we continue to elevate what we offer in terms of our buildings, our amenities, our service, because we know that, especially when you're talking to the newer generation, who are more discerning and also, I guess, more have a bigger view of the world. They've seen more things. They've experienced more things. We, as a developer and as a company, we can't settle with the way things were 25 years ago. We have to consistently look for ways to improve. So that comes with every development, that, we really try to push the border of what we do. It's not necessarily, the ultra luxury for the top 1% or the top 0.1% of the market. But what we try to do is still give you something that's 5 stars, still give you something that's world class, but in a way that's still accessible for many Filipinos.
Given that the real estate business is undergoing a lot of changes lately because of what's happening globally and even locally, how do you navigate through these changes without losing sight of your mission or your vision, and while still maintaining that legacy that you have built over the years?
I think what helps us stay on track despite a lot of the noise and a lot of things that are going on locally or internationally is we know our target market. So we build our products, we build our hotels, we build our condos to fit that target market. So even if, you're getting a lot of news that there's a glut here or there's overbuilding for that, but for example, in Metro Manila, we build for students. The students aren't going away no matter what. The universities have been there for over 100 years, some even the several hundred years. They're not moving. So if you know your market, if you know what you're building for, it's just a matter of staying committed to that despite all of the noise. And I think that's what's helped us a lot. It's we're very focused on what we do. We're a developer. We don't try to do everything. We're not trying to please everyone or build something for everyone. We know who our market is. We know what we're giving them. And as long as we continue to see that market grow and continue to see that market invest with us, we continue to expand in those specific segments.
As a next generation leader of Torre Lorenzo, what's your role in navigating through these changes in pursuing the company's vision and expansion?
I think when you start having the next generation join the company, it's a better pulse of what is happening on the ground. When you talk real estate, you're talking of buildings or hotels that will be around for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. So you actually shouldn't be looking at what's happening now. You have to keep your eyes on the next generation of what they're looking for, of what they want. Because if it takes 5 years, for example, to build a 40-story tower, what the needs are today will be passé by the time your tower is finished and turned over. So you have to really look at what you have to give something to your customers that they might not necessarily want now, but they will want tomorrow. So it's a tricky balance. And that's something that we're constantly learning how to adapt, how to change, because the plans that, for instance, we sign off right now, in 5 years' time, maybe might not all be relevant. So we have to be flexible and we have to be willing to adjust to what the market needs.
I guess that your advantage, given your youth, is that you are that market. You're that next generation.
Actually, not even. When you're talking of university residences, I've been out of university for a number of years already. So it's already looking at what Gen Alpha and younger want. Because the way I studied when I was in college is already very different from how the kids in school now are dealing with hybrid classes. Everything's a lot more online, and traffic has just gotten worse. So even like for myself, it's constantly being on the ground, talking to actual students, talking to the school, seeing what's going on, and trying to get inspiration out of that. So when we build our next project, we're not building for a student who has graduated 4 years ago.
As a leader in the company, when you were just starting, Has it ever been a problem, your age or your gender? Had you ever had to deal with that issues like that? Maybe not within the company, but with other stakeholders, partners, suppliers, clients.
I'll start maybe with gender. I think I'm extremely lucky that when I joined Torre Lorenzo about almost 3 years ago, the company's predominantly female. Our ex-com is 75% female. Our department heads are majority female. And I think when you look at that, and like as an overall company, we are predominantly female. Even with our hospitality properties, for example, we have all female general managers. This did not happen. This happened by chance, and I think coming into the company as a woman, and I'm lucky that there were already those before me who set the example and set the precedent that, just because you're female doesn't mean that you have to work a little bit harder, try. The others paved the way for that. And that I'm lucky that I came into the company when when it had this opportunity for me. In terms of age, I think there's definitely some humility coming in, because as someone who's younger, and also specifically for me, I'm not an architect, I'm not an engineer, I'm a business person. So it's coming in with that sort of humility to ask the questions of those who have the expertise, of those who are actually trained and licensed, and learning from there. So it's not coming in, and I think you can either come in very confident and a little bit arrogant, or you can come in and say, I don't know anything, I'm not even going to try. So it's kind of that in between where you come in, admit that you don't know everything, but take that opportunity to ask all the questions. Ask all the questions, ask for, no jargon, give it to me in a way that someone who does not have a technical background can understand. And in that way, slowly start to build up my knowledge base and of what I know. I think it also, so aside from asking those questions, it also goes back and forth. You're coming in with the experience of an outsider. You're coming in as someone who's lived in the properties, who's walked those properties. So maybe someone who's been, just thinking of the technical details doesn't remember what the actual lived-in experience is like. So that's where I try to come in and at least give something that, no, we're doing this because our residents are looking for this. They're, instead of having, very large function rooms, for example, which I think was a common staple in many condos or apartment buildings before. If you look at why would you put something like that in a student-geared residence, they actually want co-working spaces. They want more lounges. They don't want an empty hall to throw a party, because if you look at it now, kids don't throw the same kind of house parties that what they once did. So it's just learning back and forth, trying to figure out and being able to contribute based on experience. It might not be technical, but it comes from your customer and consumer knowledge, which is really where I can come in with a business background.
So, given what you just mentioned, you didn't really have to fit into a certain stereotype in the company, because gender-wise.
Yeah,
And
gender-wise, it was
yeah.
not a challenge. I'm very lucky. But I think also maybe it comes with personality. I'm not afraid to say no. And I'm the kind of person, like, I like taking on challenges, like pushing myself. And I don't think I've ever seen gender as a sort of hindrance for that. I might be one of the lucky ones that I haven't been put yet in a situation where that's become a real hurdle, but I know it's a is a challenge for a lot of people. So I'm just happy that we've built a company that allows women to really voice out their opinions, to have a fair share in terms of their voice, and actually take up more seats in the table than the other gender.
It's actually very refreshing that you mentioned that you came in with a humble state of mind, willing to learn. So that again goes against the stereotype of when a family member joins a family company. Usually, the impression would be that that family member would be bossy, would be feeling know it all and stuff.
I think, well, one, I came in very squarely middle management. I was not a manager, I was not a boss. So coming in, it was really like had to learn from others in order to get my project set up. We're at the size that the company is now, there are already certain structures and frameworks in place. We've learned a lot from all the buildings and projects we've finished. So we already have a sort of template or best practice of things that we want to lift from certain projects to bring on to the next. So I know that our past projects have been successful, therefore it did not make sense to come in to rewrite the entire playbook when we have things that are working. So why would we try to overhaul and redo a lot of things? And I think the other thing also that maybe helped me coming into the company is this is not my first job. I worked outside for several years with a multinational firm. And that also helped me understand, okay, this is, how a large multinational corporation works. This is how structures are put in place. This is how it feels to come in as the fresh grad and to, really work your way through that ladder. So coming into this company and coming into the family business, that helped shape the kind of mindset that, you're not coming in as a boss. You're coming in as an employee. I still clock in, clock out every day. I still file leaves like everyone else. And so you're part of this entire organization. And I don't think that means you have special treatment over others.
So you mentioned earlier that the changes that the company has to adapt to, and changes in the real estate industry. And among these changes and things that buyers or guests look for is sustainability and how your project impacts or relates to the community around it. So how do you adapt to these demands of the market now?
I think one thing which is a very low hanging fruit, which a lot of people appreciate, is you just talk about all the things you've been doing in terms of sustainability, in terms of your efforts with energy consumption, in terms of your engagement with the community. These are things that we have been doing. And when we built some of our properties, for example, sustainability as a buzzword did not exist. We were just doing those things because it was the right thing to do or the more efficient way of doing things. And so the easy shift is because these practices were already ingrained or already built into some of our projects and developments. It was just a matter of talking about them. And that's kind of where the marketing, consumer speak of it comes into place. Other than that, I think the sustainability aspect of it is the technology is changing so fast. It's just a matter of finding the right technology at the right time. Sometimes there's this really, really great innovation, but it costs an arm and a leg. For example, solar used to be very, very, very expensive, which is why even if the technology is there, we have an abundance of sunlight, it's great for everyone. The business math of it did not make sense. And so it's just a matter of keeping an eye out for these technologies, figuring out the right time when to pull the trigger on it. Usually when these things kind of hit that tipping point when they're about to scale and, you know, costs go down significantly, that's the time you can really push for mass adoption. And with that, you know, it's really just keeping getting inspiration from others around the world. I think the technology is all there. You just have to find it. And that's, I think, the great thing about, you know, this whole ecosystem, about it being connected, being very global. A lot of the things that we apply for in our projects or in our hotels are not unique ideas, and we're very frank about that and honest. We did not think of these things. We actually saw them in other properties and other hotels and resorts around the world, and it was just a matter of finding a way to bring it to the Philippines, to localize it, and to make it work for our specific environment. So I think having that view of what others are doing, finding the right technology, the right systems, and the right team to pull it all together, because you're able to make your projects more sustainable. And then once you're able to do that, it's just a matter of sharing what you're doing, because especially when you're talking to the younger generation, they want to hear these things. Like in our island resort, Dusatani Lubi Plantation, which is in Davao de Oro, we now give sustainability back of house tours. Meaning we're showing people, this is the solar farm, this is the battery, this is our water bottling facility, this is a compost pit. These are the kind of things that, you know, you wouldn't think a guest who is staying in a 5-star resort would want to see, but people actually do. And so this is where a lot of things that we've built into the property, we've built into the resort, now become center stage and become a part of the entire guest experience.
And hopefully when your guests go home, they can apply some of the learnings
Yes.
from your projects.
Yes, and we're very, very transparent about what we do. We're also transparent about, you know, things that we have yet to try, maybe because it's too expensive, it's not quite feasible yet, but we're always open, we're always on the lookout. And the good thing is we're growing, we're expanding as a company, we have more projects, we have more residential, we have more hotel, we have more mixed use developments coming up. So it's just finding a way of adapting and bringing these new innovations into our pipeline.
So your company is known for focusing on the leisure and student residential condominium segments, but also recently the service apartments with your hotel, international hotel brand partners. So what have you observed in the market in terms of buyer preferences, or in the case of the hotels, the guest preferences that have evolved recently?
In terms of hotels, I'll start with that side first. What we're seeing with a lot of guests is, one, that focus on sustainability in terms of how they choose where they want to go on vacation. And even for our city hotels, for example, when you're talking to corporate accounts, they're also looking for sustainability, because it, again, helps them meet their wider company metrics if they're staying in a property that is aligned with their sustainability goals. Other things we're seeing in terms of leisure market, there's people are really looking for more experiences. It's what some people in the industry have said, what Filipinos typically look for in a hotel are 3 Bs. So the bed, the breakfast, and the bathroom. But what we're seeing now, especially when it comes to holidays, they want more than just a room. They're looking for actual activities, things to keep them busy, things to take videos and TikToks of, hopefully to help them go viral. And I think that's really driven because now travel is a lot more accessible for so many people. Net of whatever fuel increases are coming, travel, which is you can get really good deals for flights. So a lot more people are not just traveling locally anymore. They've seen what other countries have to offer. And so they're looking for experiences locally that are at par with what they've experienced in other countries like Japan, Thailand, Vietnam. And they're looking to have a similar experience, a similar holiday when they travel around the Philippines. And I think that's where we have to think of how we innovate our guest experience. It's not just a room that they're looking for anymore. They want the total package. They want something that keeps them coming back, and something new to try every time they come back. And that's a challenge for hotels. And that's something that, we're constantly on our toes figuring out, okay, what else can we do? What can we add to our offering? And really to help keep our guests occupied and coming back to us. So that's on the hotel side. In terms of the residential, it's what buyers are looking for. If I talk like specifically with our student residences, it's the way kids are studying now has changed. Technology has helped a lot. So you actually see some schools going permanently hybrid, meaning you're not in the classroom 5 days a week. You're in the classroom maybe for 3 days for the actual part of school that needs you to physically be there, like lab or group work, but maybe some of the lectures are already done online. So it's building spaces that allow for that. Other things we're seeing with buyers is when it comes to these student residences, your 18-year-old college kid does not need 30 square meters of living space. In reality, the college experience is not spent in your room. It's spent socializing. It's spent interacting with your peers and your classmates. So with that, with our newer projects, for example, our square meter size of the units has gone down versus some of our older projects. But in those buildings, it's communal spaces, it's co-working, it's a bigger gym, it's a bigger pool. It's an area for them to bring guests in. You have more cafes, because that's what students now are looking for. And I think this is actually an offshoot of having to go fully online for the pandemic. So these kids who were maybe in high school or at that time, now that it's kind of shifted back, they don't want to be alone anymore. They want to be around people. So even your structures and how you design your space has to change with that. So these are things that we try to keep tabs on. These are things that, with each project, we try to see, okay, what worked in our last, what's still working, and maybe what has become passé, or what do we need to shift. So these are things that are active discussions with all of us. And if you look at, our list of amenities per building, it's changed, it's evolved. And if you go around and you see our first building versus our newest building, you can see what shifted and in terms of what buyers and our residents are looking for.
But I imagine that the choice of housing for the student would depend also in a large part to the parents. So how do you address the concerns or requirements of the parents?
Well, one, when the kid is happy, the parent is happy.
Okay.
I think that's the first. But the second is what the parents are really looking for their kid who's possibly moving away from home for the very first time, is they want safety and they want security for their kid. And that's something that we do not compromise on for any of our buildings. And this is the one time we don't listen to what the kid wants, because it's the parent at the end of the day, like you mentioned, who's buying the unit or paying the rent. So that's why all of our buildings, it's restricted access. It's RFID access. You can only go to your floor or the amenity floor. We have actually notifications when you tap your RFID to enter the building. It sends a text to the parents that so and so has entered the building or exited the building. Kids don't like that, parents do. That's the compromise. You've moved away from home. I just need to know where you are. And also, it's the 24/7 security. It's a proper receptionist at the front desk and not just the security guard with a logbook who, so this, we know the faces of the people who come in and out. And this is something, we've put in all of our buildings, and I think parents have really come to appreciate. Some students don't like or don't even present a Torre building to their parents because they know they can't get away with certain things. But that's, I think, something that we've kept and something that we still want to keep because we see the value of it. And especially for now, when you're talking of these younger Gen Z to Gen Alphas, these parents, more than, let's say, the parents of millennials, these parents are very, very involved with their children. Some might even call it like helicopter parenting or tiger parenting, but they, from day one, have been with their children. So having them move out for the very first time is a very big jump. So you have to still keep that connection, still help them feel like they're part of their children's lives, even as they move on to college.
So how about the surrounding community? Of course, you're near universities. Aside from being near the universities, what do buyers and residents look for in the community?
I think, well, one, again, it's that safety and security, that it's not just the building, it's also the community around. So that's where we really work to make sure that the streets are clean, that it's well lit, there's cameras around, working with the local barangays to help set that up. In some cases, even for some of our schools, we have a shuttle service that drops off and picks up from the building to the school, just to, kind of, especially for those maybe who aren't as familiar with the area or who are a bit more cautious, they have that option. And I think what we've learned through the years is that having an active community engagement really helps make the place better for everyone. We purposely keep things clean. We purposely take care of our surroundings because we know once we do that, it benefits everyone else around. It's not just our residents, but our neighbors as well. And that's something we've done with our residential properties. That's what we've done also with our leisure, our hotels and resort. And it's something that we want to continuously do with the rest of our projects.
Regarding your project amenities, aside from the stuff that helps with the students' study for their school requirements and meeting fellow students, you also mentioned that you have other leisure amenities within the building. Can you tell us more about that and why are these necessary and how they complement your other amenities?
Yeah. So in our building, so yeah, aside from the study lounges, group study halls, we have spaces dedicated to fitness. So you have your gyms, which are fully fitted out with live fitness equipment. So we don't scrimp on quality when it comes to our gyms. We have 25-meter lap pools, just so it, and people actually use them. That's the amazing part. You have these, so there's that fitness side of things. Other things we've also included is our newer buildings, especially. Everyone got a dog over the pandemic. So we have pet parks in our buildings as well. So even if in our student university residences, people bring their dogs to stay with them during the week. So we've really built facilities for pets as well. Again, because it's a whole holistic holistic mindset when we're thinking of the amenities that we're building. So with that's when we're talking of students. It's really just figuring out, okay, what's happening with the students now, what are they looking for, and lately what we've been seeing is, one, that fitness, and then two, everyone has a pet and that pet needs somewhere to go. um, in our upcoming buildings, it's we're already thinking, how do we level up those amenities, because those are already becoming a bit more commonplace, or you're seeing those in other buildings, in other student residences as well. So I can't fully disclose. We're about to launch some new projects this year with our next set of leveled up amenities. But it's really, I think, taking from the team's experience, taking from the student experience as well, what others are looking for. And hopefully that's exciting for our buyers and exciting for our future residents.
We'll be looking forward to that when you announce those new amenities.
Soon, very soon.
The real estate sector has undergone a lot of challenges, especially in the last few years. Post-pandemic changes in preferences, and then recently there's a glut in the Metro Manila condominium market. How are you dealing with its challenges? Are you affected, or are you insulated from this?
I think because we're very specific about our target market, especially in Metro Manila, we're not affected by any of the oversupply or the glut. Actually, we are undersupplied. Because we know in Metro Manila, the focus for us has always been students, has always been around universities. So you have these schools which have been around again for many, many, many years. They're not moving. In fact, they're trying to expand within the few blocks that they have, or trying to adapt to be able to cater to more students. So with that, with all this talk of oversupply, our sales have been very strong, our occupancy has been very strong. And surprisingly, even through the pandemic, because these students, while the world around them was shut down and everyone was forced to go home, we had a lot of residents actually come back and stay in our buildings because they could focus in their apartments instead of being at home with, I don't know, their parents nagging them or younger siblings. So it worked out. And I think from there, it's really, we're lucky that we chose to stay focused on that market and we haven't been as affected as other developers.
Because of these changes, and of course, it's part of the business. Eventually, there will be challenges, there will be risks. How do you incorporate these into your long-term strategic plans? No? How do you, maybe you don't have a crystal ball, but you have to anticipate some of these challenges eventually.
One, I think when we take risks, we're very calculated about it. There are some markers, for example, that we know are going to be very, very difficult to change. So one, the Philippines is a very young population, meaning you are going to have students, you're going to have a lot of young professionals in the next 30 years, so one generation. So because of that, we can make a calculated guess that if we tap into this market, we'll probably be a little safer. And even if we don't take 100% of that pie, or even 60 to 70%, it's still a very sizable part of the population, and it's a good enough opportunity for the business. Other things that, like just to kind of hedge for risk, just learning how to be flexible and learning how to adapt and knowing when to pivot. Not every project is perfect. Not everything that we do is 100% successful. And I think that's something that we constantly work on. So if something is not performing today, we will work on it until it is at the level that we want. And that surprises people because they think, oh, when you finish a project, you're done. But no. And I think specifically for myself, it's my surname on the building. There is a brand that my father built. There's a brand that we built as a company, and we can't let that not perform. So until the very end, we are very involved. So even after we've turned over the building to the buyers, for example, we're still very involved in terms of property management. In our hotels, even if we've opened them 5, 6, 7 years ago, we're still there. We're still staying in the guest rooms. We're still nitpicking the little details. We're still walking all our properties. And with that, so we make sure that everything that we do, risky or not, we're doing something about it. And that's kind of the discipline that's been instilled in me by my dad, and that's been instilled to all of us in the company. And and that's something that we continue to do with all of our projects. And that while we're not sure that every project is going to be a success right away, as long as you're still willing to work on it, as long as you're willing to put in the time to troubleshoot and to figure out how to pivot, how to change, how to adapt, you can turn something into, you can create a better outcome for some of these projects and some of the things that you thought initially wouldn't be very successful.
So you mentioned a lot of changes that you've been adopting, showing how nimble the company is to these changes, and that you've actually found a niche where you're doing well, and nobody else seems to be offering that product. Well, now the world is becoming more digital, not just in the way students go to school, but in even in the leisure business. So how are you, given your tech background, how are you using new technology, digital technology, to help your business move along?
I think one, digitizing a lot of things is really helpful for us as we start to scale. It's very easy to keep things analog when you're dealing with 4 buildings, 5 buildings. But when you scale that up to 20 to 100, that's where technology really has to help us. So on the back end, which is the less glamorous part of the job, it's really that whole transformation to make things more seamless, to have different departments talk to each other, to have the databases talking to each other. In terms of other things that digital is helping do for us, it's helping us reach new markets. Specifically for hospitality, for the hotels and the resorts, we're actually able to get a whole new audience of guests that we never thought would be coming to a random island in the middle of the Davao Gulf, for example. So being in tune with what's available online, being able to tap those markets the right way, tap those audiences, whether that be buyers or potential guests, potential residents, that's what helping us and continuously helping us transform. Looking forward, I think the big thing that this whole digital transformation is going to help shape is how we think of design. Just because, like you mentioned, things are changing very quickly. The challenge now is trends are so fast now. And when you're dealing with something that takes 5 years to build, you have to learn how to do and how to change that up quickly. So that's something that we're still working on. We're still trying to figure out, and we're lucky that we're still able to do that even with the current size of the company. And we hope that as we grow, that technology will help us keep that same sort of mindset and keep that set of skills active as we grow.
For your leisure business, your hotels and resort, um, recently the foreign tourist arrivals have not been so good. How do you compensate for the loss of or for the stagnation of this market? Do you focus more on domestic tourists, or do you go for the MICE market, or how?
It's a mix of both. And I think it's really dependent on the property's design. So for you can tap the MICE market, that will help. You can tap local market, that will help as well. The I think maybe the what we're maybe lucky or not so lucky that Davao as an international gateway is not quite as developed as Cebu or Boracay or Manila Clark. So our hotels, three of which are based in Davao, had the biggest contribution has always been local tourism, has always been Filipinos, has predominantly been a lot of guests from the Mindanao region. So for us, any international tourism is an upside. It's something that we're constantly trying to push, and I think that's why we've partnered with international brands, because they help us get that exposure outside of the Philippines. That's There's always that discussion, okay, why don't you do a local brand, why don't you create your own brand, for example? But if we really want Filipino hospitality to be world class, we have to get our name out there. And instead of trying to build something from the ground up and trying to get that reach, that's where bringing in known brands and brands that are willing to work with Filipino partners becomes very valuable.
Yeah. We still have a lot of questions to ask, but we're running out of time. So, one last question. In your version of the sit down, who would you like to interview?
I think, well, given the chance, though he's someone I talk to every day, most likely my dad. So he still runs the company, but I think there's a lot of valuable insights that he can share in terms of, real estate, or how we think through things, how we decide on, what moves or what risks to take, which I think, more than just the business side of thing. I think the way he thinks and processes and makes decision is something that, would be very valuable to others.
Oh, so thank you, Monica. You've been such an engaging guest, and thank you for the wealth of information you provided us about your company. So this is the latest episode of the Manila Bulletins, The Sit Down. We'll see you next time.